Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another installment of the Weekly Catch-Up Podcast. It's Sunday, August 8, 2021, and this is the 78th episode of our humble little show. I'm your host, Carson Gibbons, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. B-Rad Colvin.
That'd be me.
How you doing, buddy? Happy
Well,
Sunday morning.
Thanks, man. Just laying in the cut, bro.
Good weekend?
Yeah. And this is the calm before the storm, because we go back this week.
You got some snot-nosed kids coming back for duty, don't you?
Absolutely.
Does that start tomorrow?
So no, we do have to report back tomorrow, but the freshman orientation is on Tuesday, and then school begins on Wednesday.
Right on.
Yeah.
Man, back in the saddle, 2021, 2022 school year. What year of teaching is this for you?
This will be my 7th.
Dang.
Yeah.
Your 7th? I saw it was Checker's 10th.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's crazy to think about 10 years of your life dedicated to this pursuit.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah. All right, well, I've got some topics. Do you?
Yeah.
No, you don't. I love it. Hey, we're back to keeping up with the show's name. It's been 8 days since we last recorded, so it's kind of the weekly catch-up. Appreciate that. I've been an absolute monk this week, so it's going to mainly be reflections on things external to my own life this week, but let's get into it.
All right, man. Let's get it.
It's the weekly catch-up with Carson and Brad. Here to talk about the week we done had. It could be sports, religion, politics, we keeping the tabs. You would think they work for Gucci, how they deep in they bag. Get your facts up. On Wednesday we'll be counting the stats up. So turn the volume up till it's maxed up. You know the drill. So tell a friend to relax up and chill. We back up. This is the weekly catch-up.
So how you living, man?
Doing all right. This past week, I had that teacher convention.
Were you in San Marcos?
I was. No, sorry. It was actually in Round Rock.
Oh.
Yeah, everybody had been. It was even in like our emails that it was San Marcos, but ended up being at the Kalahari Resort in Round Rock, which boasts I believe it's the largest indoor water park in either Texas or the U.S. I can't remember exactly.
Maybe the world.
You think so?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so meetings were rather dull, but it's always great seeing some great teacher friends. Like I got to see Nelly and Danny Simakula. Got to see Gabby LaRue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is he a teacher?
Uh-huh.
Where?
The Oaks.
Where's that?
Somewhere in Texas.
Okay.
I can't remember which city.
What about Daniel and Nelly? Where do they teach?
So they just moved. They were in New Mexico.
Okay.
And they just moved over in the valley and are going to be teaching over there.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize that they were in education.
Yep. PE. And Melly is going to be teaching English this year as well. So
sweet.
Yeah, so we got to talk about that for a bit. Ran into Adriana Baca. Love her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were just tons and tons of teacher friends that's always everybody's favorite part of these conventions. It's like, okay, we'll link up after the meeting and hang out. But yeah,
that's
it was
awesome.
Cool. It was a cool time.
That's so cool that you see the through line of like networking within your profession with people that you went to college with like forever ago. I don't get that a whole lot. Like whenever you run into a SWAU grad out in the modern contemporary, like kind of tech startup or business world, you're like, whoa,
you made it out man? Too.
What's up, black sheep?
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And this convention was within the Texas Union, and every 4 years, I believe, they have the entire like U.S. teachers convention like of Seventh-day Adventists. And so that one because a lot of people move away and stuff, but those are always fun because you get to see people that you haven't seen in years. But yeah,
what's up with Gabby nowadays? Is he still the same Like he's always been.
He's a really fun dude. Super animated.
Probably the cockiest, most confident guy I've ever met, and I've always had respect for that. I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah, I would say he's probably chill.
He's got self-esteem for days, son.
And I don't see him on the regular, but like at the convention, he seemed like low key, and
he's probably hollering.
Super cool. No, he settled down.
Oh, really? Like married, settled down?
I believe so. Yeah,
dude.
Yeah, at least he has a girl. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm like behind the 8 ball. I'm like even the cocky people from college are like,
oh, dude, I saw Francis.
Dude, I've been meaning to bring this up to you for forever. You never replied to my group message. This was months ago. You might recall this, but
Who are we in a group message with?
Okay, so it was Michael. You, me, and Michael. It was some sort of like podcast thread that we'd been in, and I sent you a photo.
No. I replied to that.
Did you?
I'm almost positive I did.
Okay, was it like a day or two later?
I remember you sending it. You're like, and you took a picture, and he's like in the
How
background.
wild. Francis was sitting at the table next to us.
Did you say what's up?
No.
Oh.
I knew he didn't know me.
Yeah. Okay.
I have like, I never felt like I was like super popular at SWAU. Or that I've never gone back. I've never gone to an official function. I've never banked on a warm welcome upon return, if that makes sense. So
for me, I'm just like, everybody's like, oh, Brad, he's cool, but like we don't really hang out. Like we just think each other are cool, but we don't have
yeah. So my situation is similar, except they're not thinking, oh, Carson's cool.
No,
they're just like, oh, there's that guy I don't know, and I don't hang out with him.
Okay, whatever, man. You were cool. I hung out with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You were cool by extension.
I mean,
it's like, guys, he's with me.
Yeah. This is my lawyer.
Honestly, you were.
I know. Everybody was just like, you're my lawyer. You're my agent. One day, you know. I'm like, no, what about now?
You went to the teachers committee with me.
I'm like, what about friendship now?
Yeah. Over here downloading Avatar, the James Cameron Avatar, bootlegging it, and Carson has to speak on my behalf.
Just super out of touch back then. I think didn't have as much control over my emotions.
Yeah, that's what college was for.
But that's awesome that you got to see all those folks.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was a great time, and then also did like some staff bonding. Went out to dinner a couple times with them, and so that was cool. But overall a great time. Happy to be home, and got back into the classroom at the end of this past week, setting everything up. I completely revamped my syllabi, and like my principal kind of wants to use some of the classroom rules. Like he wants that to kind of be like school wide and everything, and wants to use my words. So that always feels good that you have approval from your boss, and he kind of wants everybody to implement it. And just getting ready. We have so for all of the new students, like those new parents are coming in to get to know, expectations and stuff. They're coming in this evening, so I'll be up at CTA later today, and then get one more day in the classroom before they all get there. Freshman orientation. We're going to take them to a water park, have a good time. And then...
Is it the largest indoor water park?
No, it's one of the smallest outdoor. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think we're going to like Yogi Bear. The Jellystone Park in Burleson.
I'm unaware.
It's like an art, like you can, yeah, it is what it is. But
I've made it my mission to avoid water parks as an adult, or even pools with any children present.
That's a big one.
I like a grown and sexy pool.
Yeah.
My new pool that we have here at, Victory Park, new to me, it's like the perfect amount of turn up, because you don't want to be the people that are like everyone's smashing beer bottles and going crazy and loud music, competing boom boxes type deal.
Yeah.
That's kind of at your entry level uptown Dallas proper apartments where there's like 1,000 units. And I remember touring an apartment one time, and there was just like natty light boxes in the hallways and towels. People were like laying wounded, like, it was just insane. And this one is like perfect because it's like up until probably 2 or 3, you're going to see a lot of onesomes, twosomes with a book, with AirPods, catching some sunbathing rays. And then by 3 or 4, you kind of see the pockets of people with drinks, maybe a Beats pill, but it's totally manageable. Everybody gets what they came for.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to find.
Yeah. We went out to Courtney's pool yesterday with a few friends, and I will say that there were kids there, but like the kids were well behaved. And on my Instagram, you saw that cannonball I was doing. There was a kid in the pool, and he's like, I rated a 9 out of 10. I was like, let's go. Awesome, man.
You're like, why the point deduction?
Yeah, I was like, what was my form a little off? But yeah, no, they were.
That's a pretty good boomerang.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah,
shout out to
wow, the
shout
form
out to the fiance.
I'm pretty sure I rolled that one back.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah,
that's what's up. Yeah, so anyway,
love watching you tuck and roll.
Okay, time to move on. Yeah, so school starts this week. Looking forward to it. Ready to be back in the classroom. And that's where I'm at. That's how I'm doing. How are you?
Man, over here in the modern tech startup world, work never ended. Summer was not a thing. Regretting not having, flown the coop to Mexico last week. It would have been probably the optimal week, given what I saw happen back here, which was a lot of nothing. It was very much. I did go back to the office this week. I'd been a little bit more spotty about that at different times during the summer, and went into the office 4 days this past week. Mixed it up with some team members, had a great week at work, lots of great updates, and went out to the golf course pretty much every night.
Yeah.
Just tried to focus on just the routine more than anything. Had some plans this weekend that kind of got canceled last minute. So just been chilling, waiting for the podcast, and gonna have dinner with my rents later this evening.
Nice. Give them my love.
I will. Yeah. It's looking forward to seeing them and catching up, but it's been what?
Sorry to cut in, but before I forget, because I forgot, you'd be proud of me. Well, maybe not proud of me. You might look down on it, but I don't know. I don't know how you feel about Top Golf.
Like it's fake.
Okay, and that's fair. But I won at Fake Golf on Friday, like
based on what?
Out of like 12 people,
like
the most points.
And remind me, you get that by hitting closest to the flag within the point section. Okay.
Yeah. And I will say, like, and this was for like Courtney's coworkers and some of their friends. Like one of her coworkers had a birthday, so we got invited, and so we went out, and so everybody was like new to me, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna look like a fool out here. But I whiffed my first swing, like just caught air, and then after that, it did pretty well. And I would make it into the second closest target, like not the closest one to us, but consistently the second one. There was one dude that was hitting the back fence, and I'm just like, okay, that looks incredible, but he's not getting any points. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because anyway,
I think people are playing it.
That's the closest I've gotten to playing golf in a really long time, and I did okay. I still don't think I could go with you. I think I would piss you off. But
No.
I don't know. I think I'm not convinced I could hit it like super hard down the drive. You know what I mean?
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I get this a lot. Like, I know Michael has said this to me before. Several people have been like, oh, you don't want to play with me. I'm going to shoot 100 more strokes than you. And, dude, it depends on the day. I could be right there with you. You could outdrive me certain days. If I've got the yips or something, like, you never know what's going to happen. If I'm on, I'm going to school you. But I don't care if you're not hitting it well.
Yeah.
The main thing that's going to piss me off is like pace of play situation. If you I would much rather you hit 2 or 3 little straight screamers down the fairway,
as long as we're moving,
than the guy that, hits a big drive into the grass, and then we spend 15 minutes looking for the ball.
Got it.
As long as you're willing to say ball is lost, I spent 30 seconds looking for it, I'm going to drop it right here.
Well, I'll just walk a couple feet and I'll be like, mine's right there.
Yeah.
Just rolled off the tee a little. Okay,
but
so,
if you're down,
you know what we should do before we hit 100. Before we hit episode 100.
Oh, I thought you meant like age.
Yeah, no, so, yeah. Before we,
I'm like, I'm not gonna make it to 100, buddy.
Yeah, before we hit episode 100, I think we need to go play a round of golf.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to go out.
If anything, that's good content for you listeners. I feel.
Oh, definitely, and I'll be taking video of that as well.
Awesome.
I got some great video of me and my buddy David Richardson. He chose the most inopportune shots to do slow-mos of me. They were all unusable, but I got this one of him that, man, he just he pisses me off because pace of play, I'm like, dude, hit the ball. Like, he's over here just like cracking jokes, taking practice swings. Like, I will have teed off and be in the cart, and he's like putting his glove on to take a shot. I'm like, hit the ball, smack the ball, let's go.
I will say, like, I'm a very timely person. If we're moving, like, because we're gonna be out there, and I'm assuming we're gonna get dinner after. So I'm like already looking at the menu on my phone while we're on hole 2.
This is a completely different golf game than I'm used to. Hole 2.
Yeah.
Can I put in my order for the clubhouse now?
Yeah. Perfect. We're good.
You know that at the after the 9th hole, there could be a clubhouse stop, so you can get yourself a little hot dog.
Oh, before we continue on?
Well, the nice golf courses like Cowboys Golf Club out in Grapevine, you know, they've got beer cart girls, the best looking in the Metroplex, BT Dubs, and they've got a grill.
Yeah.
Located at holes like, I think it's like 7, 9, 11. They all kind of border that, and they'll fry it up right for you right there.
Gotcha.
It's amazing. Okay. It'll be 158 degrees in that hut, and you'll smell nothing but just Dior, Vicky's Secret, and all these amazing perfumes coming out of there.
That's what's up.
It's wild. You really can you can judge a place by that in many ways.
I like it.
But let's definitely do that. David, it was so funny. It kind of worked not in my favor because I hit a couple good ones, and he's like, how'd you do that? And I was like, you know how I did it? I wasn't laughing, goofing around, lollygagging. I got up there. I didn't use my practice swings for my best swings. I just smacked the ball. So I said, if you just quit lollygagging and jaw-jacking and just got up there and just hit the ball, you'd probably be better. And so he started doing that, and I think he drove the ball better than he ever had in a round together. We played match play, and I don't think either of us had our best stuff at all. We both got there like 5 minutes before the tee time. So I think I hit 5 or 10 balls.
Nice.
He didn't hit any, but we ended up tying the match play, which was perfect because, it came down to the 18th hole, and we were all tied. And I think that he sunk a putt to tie it. And we hugged, and we were like, "Oh, that's the perfect ending," No, neither of us owes each other $1 type deal. And actually, he owes me like $50. He never paid me for that round. So, David, if you're listening,
have brought this up. My bad, bro.
Hit your boy on Venmo. Anyway, props to you. I mean, Topgolf is fun.
Yeah,
it's not the same mindset.
And I completely understand that.
I love getting out there for the serenity. I don't like the people that play music on the golf cart.
Okay.
If you ask me about my preference, I'm going to say, I'm not about that. Okay. Plus, it's always like the freshly divorced playlist. It feels like I'm 45 in Addison, Texas, on a Sunday afternoon date.
No, but I need some song examples.
Don't stop believing.
Okay.
Extrapolate every adjacent song to that. Yeah. Born in the USA. It's just terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. It's always that guy that's alone on Father's Day, and you're like, he has kids. He doesn't talk to him.
Got it.
Yeah. Right. Making generalizations, but I enjoy Topgolf. I just think the frustrating thing about Topgolf too is that it's $1,000 to go to Topgolf.
Yeah. It was somebody's birthday, so
true.
I didn't have to. Yeah.
If you get drinks, if you get cheese fries, if you keep rolling over that bay for an hour, I think just sitting there for an hour is $55 or more, something like that for the actual bay rental. So, I've gone before, and it's just been hundreds of dollars, and I'm thinking
and you could be playing like, real golf for
every
better
listener,
price.
I guarantee you there's a billion listeners out there that, well, not a billion for
No,
our show,
I mean, yeah. No, there are.
people that have been to Topgolf that listen to this show have spent $200 on a Friday night at Topgolf. I mean, for $200, you could get the VIP Ideal Golfer Pass to Cowboys Golf Club, where they have amazing practice areas. You walk into the clubhouse, ask for a Gatorade, they just hand it to you because all food is included, and you can either have brunch or dinner on the front or back end of your round.
This episode 1 of this podcast, you should have been leading with that. I'm much more involved and interested now.
Yeah. You're just going to rank golf courses by their clubhouse food moving forward. But yeah, man, it's so from that perspective, and some of the golf courses that I used to play more, like my home course, Tennyson Glen, that I would walk religiously like 2 or 3 times a week, I would walk it for $12 a round. So at the time that you've hit 12 holes, it's $1 a hole. Yeah. You can just, I would often play 12, 15, 16 holes. Sometimes I would skip 13 and 14, just kind of cut over to hole 15. But it's $28 to ride that one. Yeah. I spend a lot more on golf rounds now that I golf less frequently. And I also don't golf alone as much anymore.
Got it.
At all. Yeah. I used to get to. Now I'm typically the rounds on the weekends are much more social with somebody else.
Okay.
Mainly because, I either play with Scott, I play with David sometimes. Would love to get out with friends like you. My dad is much more religious about playing golf now, so
nice.
He's much more of a viable candidate that, I sometimes felt guilty asking him to play because he's pretty much done after the front 9 or maybe 12.
Yeah.
But I think he's enjoyed it more recently. He got his new Maverick Callaway irons and his membership and all that. So we've been enjoying going out and playing as well.
Nice. Love that.
But yeah, anxious to
I'd be down.
Get you out there, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you were in Round Rock when to win?
Let's see. Monday to Wednesday, the 2nd through the 5th, whatever those days were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's all about to I realized, like, I was looking at listeners going up and looking at how we're becoming more routine about this again. And I just realized, it's going to be the fall. It's going to be the fall semester. That's why SNL and all these shows don't debut new episodes during the summer, because it's like everybody's been here, there, and yon.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, it's been so weird because basically all of July and into the first week of August, it was just like kind of dead because you couldn't get a cross-functional team together to make a decision or to even kind of ingest a demo.
Everybody was kind of out.
Everybody was out. If you were talking to a champion or a buyer, a point of contact internally, they're kind of blueprinting for you. Well, okay, Susan in HR is going to need to see this, and Tracy in employee experience, and Ron, our CFO, we're going to want to socialize this with him. Yeah. The next time that we're all together, where we could actually attend a Zoom call or Appreciate Social won't be until, late August. So I think that we had this brief window of time, almost similar to, I don't remember some point last year, but we had this brief moment of time where it's like, if you were vaccinated, you were no longer wearing a mask, and travel was open, and everybody was globally going back to school for in-person instruction, and then corporate was to follow that.
Right.
A lot of corporations were going back September 7th, right after Labor Day. As of this past week, I got word, I think on, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday, my first enterprise customer told me that the day prior they'd made the decision that the entire enterprise of like 3,000 people would not be going back to the office on September 7th.
Oh.
And they did not reschedule it either. They pushed it indefinitely. So I feel like within the last 3 weeks ago, I was asking you, what's your go back to work strategy?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the buyers that I talk to internally are the people that roll that out in concert with other teams. And here's how we're going to do hybrid. Accounting and engineering is going to come in Tuesdays and Thursdays. They'll be remote Monday, Wednesday, Friday. this team has this special circumstance, whatever the planning was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was getting all the lowdown on how hybrid you were going to be. And everybody was a different scenario. As of this past week, I started asking people like, are your go back to work strategies, remaining intact? Are they still the same?
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end of the week, even from Monday to Friday, it started to get more nebulous, more shaky.
Yeah.
And, well, we're going to try this, but now we're hearing X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Just feels like this Delta variant is really kicking up. I saw that June 22 was like the lowest number of hospitalizations that we were averaging with about 11,000.
Yeah.
We're back to like 100,000 daily, I think, new cases.
Nice.
With the Delta variant.
Yeah,
and it's led to things like, my family has travel booked to New York City next month. Late September.
Yeah, so you wonder.
Well, I keep telling them, I'm like, I know we're going to get to go. I don't know,
what you're going to get to do.
I don't know how this is going to work in some ways or what we're going to have access to, because I don't know if you saw, but Mayor Bill de Blasio launched the first vaccine passport situation out of NYC this week.
Oh, really?
So to attend anywhere, first of all, it's mandatory masks indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to prove that you've gotten the vaccine, like a double shot vaccine, to get the passport to be able to enter any bar, restaurant, grocery store, museum, attraction. So, I mean, my whole family's good to go on that front, but
good.
That's just the precaution now.
Right.
So I don't even know what we're going to...
It'll worsen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, especially as it gets cooler, the days get, shorter. Yeah. It's very concerning, and I don't even know.
Yeah.
Could be a huge tailwind for, obviously, our business, which Appreciate helps people create stronger relationships, especially in remote times with our Appreciate social tool. But, it's, I said this to the team several times last week. I was like, well, great for our business, terrible for our mental health, Granted, we're offering the antidote to some of this, but nothing is ever going to replace the ability to just go hug people, see their full face, gauge their reactions to things, see the laughter, the smiles.
Yeah. It was interesting at the teacher convention, at the very first meeting at the beginning of everything. One of our conference members was up there talking, and he said, masks are highly recommended, but obviously, like, you can't really enforce it. And I would say a very strong majority of people, like, were not wearing masks. And I get it. Like, I know a lot of people who got vaccinated. They're like, I got vaccinated. Why do I have to continue wearing a mask and stuff? But I don't think they know exactly how. I don't think those people know exactly how COVID spreads and stuff. But
well, nobody knows how COVID spreads, because we've gotten 50 different variations of this. Like, oh, it's going to cling to surfaces for 2 weeks. Oh, it turns out that was bull.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of vaccinated people that are carriers of COVID that are giving it to other people and have COVID themselves.
Yeah.
And right now it's like this weird loop where the vaccinated are blaming the unvaccinated, and they're saying, like, you're going to set us all back. And then the unvaccinated are looking at the vaccinated and saying, you're vaccinated, you're getting COVID anyway. So, like, why would I get vaccinated or whatever? You obviously have, like, the QAnon Trump right-wing contingency that's like, my freedom, you ain't gonna jab me. America, NASCAR, red, white, and blue. And then you also have, I think that one of the largest segments is actually young people and people of color and immigrants that are in a wait and see category. That's that's a healthy percentage of the unvaccinated population. But what I've also heard now is that vaccines that enable a disease to kind of like lay dormant within you actually proves to be a better breeding ground for more extreme variations of that said disease. So we could be propelling Delta variant and whatever sister viruses are going to come out by being vaccinated. So it's like a it's in us.
That's
but
comforting.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just reading all these different articles that are, even CNN is like disputing itself. Like, there's a ticker on CNN right now that says 68% of eligible Americans have received at least one shot.
Yeah.
I read an article updated 8 hours ago that said, less than half of the U.S. population is vaccinated. And I'm like, which one is it, CNN? Come on, Wolf Blitzer.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, they do. I don't know. It's New York vaccine passport, masks, COVID, Delta variant. Seems
Delta
like
plus.
Dude, my boss, our CRO at Appreciate, lives. I don't know if I've told you about this, but he's actually in the UK.
Okay.
He was the general manager of like Europe and APAC and EMEA for WebEx back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of led their application discovery process before they sold to Cisco. And then he was a senior director over Europe and APAC for AT&T prior to retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came out of retirement to work with us because he believes in the product and kind of what it signals for the future. Well, he's in the Isle of Wight, a little island off the coast of the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of like if you just go straight to your 10 o'clock, you hit London, dead center. Once you go, through this ferry, channel pass, whatever.
Got it.
So he splits time between the Isle of Wight and then his chateau in France.
Mm-hmm.
And most recently, he was transitioning back from France to the Isle of Wight. And it was so disruptive because he had to pay out of pocket for all of these tests to prove that they were safe to travel. And then once they did get back, he had to like file paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was a mandatory 10 or 14 day like sequestering period where they had to socially distance regardless of like their status.
Sure.
And he was often having to leave meetings because there'd be a knock at the door or a phone call, and he'd be like, "Oh, it's the COVID police. I'll be right back." And like people are physically calling and checking up on you. And I'm like, are they like sealing your door or what? And so by day 9 or 10, he was stir crazy.
Yeah.
Older gentleman, still
sure.
stir crazy. And I was like, these other countries, I think it was France that had done the mandatory vaccine passport.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, if you want to go anywhere, you got to get a vaccine.
Yeah.
And I think that they boosted their numbers of vaccinated population considerably by doing that. But Texas and Florida, as two of the largest world power economies, up against some of these European countries. Texas is the 10th largest economy in the world by itself. The fact that we have governors that have signed these no mandatory mask mandates as executive orders, where no local legislative branch or, Clay Jenkins, Emperor Jenkins here in Dallas cannot mandate mask wearing because the governor has already superseded him. Yeah. And
thoughts?
Oh man. I don't know.
Okay.
Right. So I very much vacillate between like a libertarian point of view where it's like, hey, your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. And there's portions of me that are kind of very authoritarian, big city Democrat in some ways, where I'm like, hey, if we all need a vaccination and we see the handwriting on the wall for the world, make everybody get it. Like if we have other vaccines that you routinely get administered at different points in childhood, and that's why we no longer have meningitis or polio or whatever, like who am I to dispute that? Yeah. Even with the NSA and like information gathering and stuff like that, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I assume everybody's seeing what I'm keystroking anyway. So,
right.
Apple just announced that they're going to be perusing your iCloud for any child porn. They just put everyone on notice that whatever you upload to the iCloud could be reviewed by Apple corporate and turned over to the FBI.
Yeah.
So I really think that it's kind of a big brother society. I don't know what to think about the whole mandatory vaccination thing. Like, I think in some ways I surprised myself by getting vaccinated so quickly. I know I surprised friends of mine. And
for sure,
I've been surprised in many ways that I feel like many of my friends have not gotten vaccinated and they don't trust it. They're in the wait and see category.
Yeah.
like normal, relevant, educated, like beyond undergrad educated type people that don't want the vaccine.
Yeah. I got my first shot on Friday.
Did you?
I did.
So you were in this camp, honestly, that I wasn't going to call out on air as much, but I knew that you had not gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
You were, characterize your experience. You were in the wait and see camp?
Yes. Courtney and I are by no means like anti-vaxxers or anything, but just, yeah, it was kind of wait and see. But Cook, her hospital that she works at, they're making it's mandatory to get a vaccine if you want to continue working there.
Just now?
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that she hadn't gotten vaccinated far prior.
Well, again, and it's not like we believe everything that we read, but we wanted to make sure because there were reports that, it kind of messed with fertility and stuff like that. And it's like, well, we want to have a family and kind of want to make sure, so we were just like kind of looking at it from all angles. But yeah, I mean, once they said you need to get it, like we had no qualms. We went and got it. So
it's hard because have people had adverse reactions to the vaccine? They have.
Mm-hmm.
Those documented cases are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know statistically they probably aren't great. Personally, I feel as though my health has been spotty ever since taking the vaccine. I'm often the type that's like, I don't want to get a flu shot because I don't want to get the flu.
Right.
Don't give me a mild variation of the flu in hopes that I don't get full blown flu.
Yeah.
Like, let me just roll the dice.
Mm-hmm.
With this, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like I shed some tears on the way to go get it. Just be like, it's tough sometimes just still even conversing about COVID for me. And then everybody, oh, well, I don't want to get it. And, I don't want to wear a mask and stuff. And, I just feel like I personally, you can have your own thoughts on it, but I feel like people should be more considerate of how they talk, because I'm still hearing people that like just do not take COVID seriously because they didn't experience anybody around them that had it. Even if a lot of these people didn't even have friend groups that got it and ended up being okay. Like it's just completely off their radar. They didn't see anybody experience like the symptoms. Like, not only was I emotional going to get it because it was, stirring up some of the stuff with my dad, but like it was even stirring, like I was worried about the symptoms I would get from the vaccine, because I remember when I had COVID and how crappy that was, and like laying in my bed, struggling to breathe myself. And so I guess I didn't really realize it until I was in the car, but I think that was another reason why I had been hesitant on getting it, because I didn't really want to, like, even if it was just a little bit of the symptoms, it's just something that worried me. And
I know it laid you out. Like, you were, I remember, I'll never forget your text where you're like, hey, the difficulty breathing thing is no joke. Like, I was winded from like turning over in bed type deal. So, and I'm glad that you were forthcoming on this, because like I'm in the same boat where I often feel awkward or weird or out of place discussing anything to do with COVID with you, because you had such an immediate loss with that. And I also, you of all people, I was kind of like, in terms of vaccination choice, you can do whatever you want, because you've kind of been dealt. Yeah. I can try to identify with the PTSD that you have from the pandemic as a whole, but I don't know what kind of role that would play in my decision-making process in terms of vaccination or not.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it can just be draining. Like, and to be honest, a couple weeks ago, whenever you had brought up the Delta variation, I literally had I haven't watched any news. I had no clue that like there was another serious variant like that. And, so I've been kind of reading up on it since that week. And like, it is draining. And there, it seemed like there were some rays of sun, and that it might be kind of over soon. The numbers were dwindling, and now they're spiking back up again, and it's a scary thing. And not even for like, oh, poor me and the things that I've gone through, but like, I don't want to see others go through that in the future, like with this new variant. And so, like at the teacher convention, I wore a mask the whole time. And whenever school starts, I'm probably going to be wearing a mask for a while in my classroom.
You wore a mask at Round Rock?
Yeah.
See, that's super responsible of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that you said that, because, it's like you weren't vaccinated up until this point. And so that's a responsible thing for you to do. You've already had
Mm-hmm.
COVID. You probably have the antibodies for it. That's what a lot of people are saying. Like, well, I had it. Yeah. The antibodies are more present in my body mm-hmm. than those that, got the vaccine but never had the disease in the first place.
Right.
When I mentioned the Delta variant, first of all, that was probably out of place, because I know I was talking about some of the good things that are coming up later this year, and I didn't want to doom them or put bad omens on them in terms of the weddings and all of this. But even the family trip to New York City for my mom's 60th, like, I didn't want to jinx that, but we were in such denial about everything up until this point that I'm like, you know what? Let's just be honest and extrapolate mm-hmm. one of the worst outcomes that could potentially happen, which is that we're steeped back in, and that, I'm not barring the idea of lockdowns again. Mm-hmm. I think that other people in the world are experiencing lockdowns, like we might again.
Yeah.
And the Delta variant also, I think that we've talked several times about how timely last week's episode was, and we'll mm-hmm. get more into that. But I was bringing that up like as it was really cropping up, because I remember Delta variant was like on Twitter, on the news, kind of like COVID was mm-hmm. back when this was only relegated to like Asia,
right?
When it was like, oh, COVID, it's mm-hmm. not going to do anything. That's kind of what I was seeing. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and, forecast that this is going to be a bigger deal than we think. Yeah. It's more contagious. I don't know that it's more deadly. Mm-hmm. It might be. I don't know. But every day that week, I just saw it trended harder. Yeah. It was becoming more of a situation. And this week, mm-hmm. It's everywhere. We're up 10 times over on daily active new cases.
Right. Yeah. It's a crazy thing. And like, I don't mind discussing it with you, and I don't want you to ever feel like you kind of have to hold back and talking with it, because this is for the listeners to know, like, and I think I've said it before, but like, you and I can discuss openly, and I don't even mind doing it on air, but like, you were with me during all of that, right? Like, you were one of the friends that was by my side throughout all of that. And so we can talk about anything, and I'm cool with it, because I also know, regardless of your decisions, like, you are kind of hyper aware of the circumstances surrounding me, and I know that you take that into account. But
hyper aware,
yeah,
hyper aware,
yeah. But yeah, so it's been, I booked our Airbnb for our honeymoon, and I'm like, fingers crossed, like hopefully we get to go.
Can you share where that is?
Hawaii, baby.
Oh shoot,
Hawaii.
You've never been, have you?
No,
I've never been either.
Yeah, we got a BA little condo on the water, and
dude,
gonna start booking excursions next. So
I'm so jealous. That's amazing. Yeah. John and Sarah just went on their honeymoon to Hawaii for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Maybe a month or two ago now. Mm-hmm. It might have been May. Dude, let's not let that happen. Like, I swear, people get married.
We're only going for a week.
People get married and you just don't get to talk to them as much anymore. But I'm like, it was like yesterday in May. But that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, man.
If you're in an Airbnb, I would think that you'd be fine.
Sure. I guess, more so as far as like actually getting there, travel. Hopefully there's not any issues there. And then just the kind of excursions and stuff that we want to do, and eateries and whatnot. So just kind of hoping everything's all right.
Well, I am too.
And Courtney and I always knew that we were going to be getting vaxxed before our honeymoon anyway. So I think we were just kind of delaying the inevitable, just honestly to kind of get a feel.
Just see if I died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you started like sprouting a tail or anything. I don't know.
Yeah. How fun would that be? I've spent my whole life chasing my own tail as it is, so to actually have one physically would be justified.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's cool. I am hyper aware, and I have mainly because your situation was my closest situation by far.
Yeah,
nothing else bad happened besides that, really. Yeah. So, but I am kind of relieved in some ways to hear that you guys are taking that process now.
Yeah, I'm feeling okay. As far as symptoms, felt like a little warm and like maybe tension yesterday in my head. Other than that, my arm's just a little sore and I'm good.
Wait for shot number 2, buddy.
I hear that.
Are you Moderna or Pfizer?
Pfized up.
Interesting. It seems like everybody I know got Pfizer, but I got Moderna.
Yeah, I'm hearing, I don't know. I think they're all good, but the majority of people, like a lot of my medical friends got Pfizer. So I'm just like, that sounds, I don't know. I didn't really look up the difference. Courtney told me to get Pfizer, so I got Pfizer.
Yeah. It's convenient to just be able to turn to your partner and they're a library of medical information. Well, that rages on. We'll have to see. It's definitely affected the Olympics. It's affected major sport. It's interesting. We're sitting here watching. I don't even know which tournament this is, but since we last met up in the golf world, shout out to Xander Schauffle holding it down for the U.S., winning men's gold in the Olympics. And as recently as this weekend, shout out to Nelly Korda holding it down for the U.S., winning women's Olympic gold.
Nice.
The U.S. swept the golds for golf, men and women, which is that is so cool. That is one of the most competitive international sports where, I was talking to a friend that was over, and I was just kind of recapping. She was like, so do you know all the players, like, even from other countries? And I literally paused. It was on the leaderboard. And I'm like, yeah. So Cam Smith, he's from down under, and he has this mullet, and his girlfriend hates it. And she was like, oh, you're really into this.
It's like, that was a yes or no question.
Yeah. I'm like, this ain't no Top Golf, shouty. But yeah, shout out to them for holding it down. One of the big stories was Bryson DeChambeau, Dallas boy, SMU grad. He was diagnosed with COVID and said, I'm not going to get the vaccine. I don't need it. I'm a young, healthy person. I've developed antibodies. And bro, the minute that goes live on the internet, it's just like, I've been in Mark Cuban's Twitter all day because he's made the best analogies about getting the vaccine.
I liked one on my way here.
Yeah, the blackjack.
I didn't even see that one.
This was the most like apropos one.
Yeah.
Don't touch your phone so we don't get that stuff.
Yeah, I left it over there. It's on Do Not Disturb.
Let me read this. To you.
Yeah. What did the cubes have to say?
Okay. So 23 hours ago, he said, listening to the anti-vaxxers reminds me of playing blackjack and watching someone at your table with 16 explain why they won't hit against the dealer's ace or face card. The table's response when the dealer turns a 5 or lower is pretty much how vaccinated America feels right now. If you've ever played the end corner of a blackjack table in a casino, which I have, and I'll never forget sitting down next to 4 little old Asian men one time, and they had that business owner money out on the table. They had hundreds of dollars per hand, and I'm over here hitting on a 5. Like a minimum bet with the ante or whatever. And I remember I lost them thousands of dollars on that hand and learned a valuable lesson that day that the table is playing against the house and you work as a team, as a unit. And I don't like to play that end spot on the table and make the decision for the team. I'm often asking them, what should I do? Based on what you're seeing, what the dealer has. And you can very much control everyone's outcome versus the house or the variant.
I had no idea about this. I thought everybody kind of played individually.
Oh, no. I mean, technically, yes. But so dealer deals out, let's say there's 3 people at the table. And during COVID, there's 3 people at these tables. There's a seat in between. So they deal their first couple of cards face down. Okay. They take one. They deal the next one face up. They take one. If they flip over a king, you have to assume that they have a 10 underneath or an ace. If they flip over a face card, they're going to check it with their little mirror to make sure that they didn't just get a blackjack.
Right.
At which case they would offer you insurance. They would flip it over if it's blackjack, and everybody groans. Well, if the person in seat 1, they go clockwise. If the person in seat 1 gets an 18, they're going to be fine. Right. If the second person gets whatever, the whole point being that people know with card counting, if these cards are present on the table and the dealer has this is the etiquette. Because
so I was under the assumption that they played with more than one deck, so it made it more difficult to count cards.
I don't know how all that works. I don't know how to count cards. Some people do. It's obviously highly illegal. They'll bury you with cement.
Yeah. I've seen the movie 21.
Cement feet. Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah, it's great.
Great movie. But the whole point being that if I'm in the last chair, I'm getting the last cards out of that slot before the dealer inevitably gets those cards. And if the dealer has cards that lead me to think that they could pull the 10 and bust, and everybody at the table, whether they had a 12 or a 20 or whatever, they're going to win their hand. You have to work on behalf of the table.
Yeah.
So you're often seeking counsel from, I ask the dealer, I also ask the guys next to me, guys or girls next to me. So I thought that analogy from Mark Cuban was really powerful. I liked it. I didn't retweet it, not trying to be that political on Twitter.
Sure. Yeah, but all in all, and for that reason, I'm vaxxed.
And for that reason, I'm out. Dude, that's one of the funniest comeback memes on Twitter when you tweet a shark going, and for that reason, I'm out. I think Alec did that to one of your tweets the other day. Like, perfect timing.
Oh, yeah, man.
What was the one that you thought was so powerful?
He was just saying, I think it had the word like anti-vaxxers in it. If you go to it's the last tweet that I liked. If you go to my profile,
I never go through people's likes.
Me neither. And maybe like don't scroll through afterward. Like I don't know what I'm liking, but
well, that's the thing. Like,
actually, I do. Nothing's crazy. You can go through my likes.
So people understand Mark Cuban. This is Brad's last like from 3 hours ago. So people understand COVID math. If 100% of people are vaxxed, then 100% of cases will be people who are vaxxed. We will have avoided 95% of cases and 99.99% of deaths. As the percentage of vaxxed people grows, so will the reports of more vaxxed people getting COVID. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, and so I hate whenever people are like, oh, if you're vaxxed and still getting it, why would I? Well, it would make sense that they're still getting COVID, but the symptoms are not as severe due to them getting the vaccine. That's my understanding.
The best actual analogy that I've heard is Moderna, Pfizer vaccines are just seatbelts. Seatbelts have never prevented a car accident. What they have prevented is some of the damage and death that can occur when in said accident. So you're going to get COVID just like the next guy. Your results, your outcomes will be less severe with the vaccine.
I like that.
So that's the most apropos analogy I've heard up until this point.
That's good.
But yeah, I think that those of us in Texas and in Florida, kind of circling back to how this all started with how do I feel about the governors signing executive orders that no local muni could either restrict capacity, make masks mandatory. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I love it from a freedom perspective because, Abbott's able to sit down there in red Texas and say, well, this many counties are red. We're going to make this decision. But my favorite thing is living in the bluest area of a red state.
Yeah.
It's the best of all worlds.
Right.
You know, I'm in this culture district with all sorts of different lifestyles and persuasions. You know, there's gay people running around, straight people, bi people, Muslim people, apathetic people, agnostics, Catholics, men, women, trans, poly, whatever. But there's no state income tax. You know, I can carry a gun around. Like it's like the perfect mix of everything. Oh shoot, he nailed that. Sorry, should turn this off. But I don't know. You know, if I could be guaranteed that we could just nip this in the bud once and for all with these preventative measures, it'd probably be all down.
Yeah.
There is no guarantee of that. And this thing is evolving such that, you know, I don't think that well-intentioned scientists can always foresee the future. And there's so much debate around who the scientists are working for in some of these pockets that it's tragic.
Yes. I agree.
It's tragic. And our politicians, it's just like, we should be, I mean, so take Texas, for instance. Did you see the big thing with all the Texas Democrats that were trying to sit out this one vote about the Voting Rights Act or something like that, where Republicans wanted people to show some sort of voter ID to be able to vote, and Democrats didn't want it. And so a group of Texas Democratic Congress people got on a private plane, no masks, and they flew to DC from the Texas State House and like did a picket thing, you know, drew all this attention. Were not present for the vote. And I think it was either Abbott or Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor, like literally issued like a warrant for their arrest upon, you know, rearrival or something crazy. They were like, we can arrest these people for, you know, being absent from their duty. Well, and half of those people got COVID. And so the big photo op became like, well, wear your mask, don't travel, don't leave your house. But if you're a Democratic congressman or woman, you know, board a private plane that's emitting CO2 and killing the environment and give everyone COVID.
Yeah. So what was the purpose of them skipping out instead of just showing up and voting no?
Social media.
Okay.
They weren't going to do the vote, and so they just took a stand, and they did it in a major way. They got on a flight, wasted taxpayer money, went to D.C., they infected people in the White House, and it was just like, you know, when Trump did this kind of thing, it was all hell would break loose, but if Biden or somebody does it, or Democrats, free pass.
Yeah.
Free pass.
Yeah. Hate that.
So you haven't followed anything in the mainstream or news politics?
No, I mean, news? I've been staying, like, I was working on my master's classes all summer. And then at Courtney's, we just have streaming services. We don't even have local channels. And so unless it came up on my Twitter feed, I really didn't see much this summer. Now that I'll be back in school, I'll probably be more up to date on a lot of that stuff, but
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The big news from the past week or two is New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Have you seen anything about this?
Maybe.
There have been rumblings for quite a while that he was a sexual harasser.
Yeah, I did. This was on my feed.
So this week, New York Attorney General, who apparently is far left, Letitia James, came out with a scathing, like, just report that concluded that these are credible allegations. They went back through and they recounted in graphic detail a lot of the things that he had done, that he had said, little faux pas, more overt faux pas, and kind of all hell broke loose this week on that.
Jeez.
To the extent that, you know, everybody in the New York State House wants to impeach him. Biden came out and said, yes, he should resign because, as I stated months ago, if the allegations are real and credible, then he should resign. And so that was confirmed this week from the highest office in the land.
Yeah.
And then the blowback on his brother. You know, we've learned about the nepotism and the fact that Chris Cuomo and the family and high donor friends, got preferential treatment with COVID testing. They got police escorts to the hospital whenever they would need anything. Like, it was very much a pay-to-play scheme. And now with this sexual harassment stuff, Andrew Cuomo came out and did another PowerPoint, essentially, like what he won an Emmy for, because he won an Emmy for all those daytime PowerPoint presentations back in the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
He did another one where he said, I need to go out on record. I have never sexually harassed anyone. I've never touched anyone inappropriately. I've never made overt sexual advances. I'm Italian. I kiss people. I hold people with both hands. I hold their faces with both hands.
I kiss women. I kiss men.
So then he did a slideshow of him, like, kissing Bill Clinton to the Dalai Lama to this woman to that woman. Just what is going on? Like,
what do you believe at this point?
I believe that he believes about half of what he's saying.
Okay.
I think that
he doesn't view some of what he's doing as bad.
I think that he's 63 years old, from an Italian mafioso family of American political elite. His father was the governor of New York, had his own scandals. His brother is a high-powered New York individual, in the major media, and a lawyer in his own right. And I think that there's been a lot of impropriety. Chris Cuomo was actually caught basically trying to liaise CNN staff to get out in front of this. He was part of his brother's crisis communications team, which, if he's a leading, granted, opinion journalist on CNN primetime, highly inappropriate, a lot of nepotism. It's the big bad machine versus everyone else. A lot of that was really disgusting. I think that Andrew Cuomo has always been physical with people, and men and women. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that to a certain extent, because I'm one of those people. Like, I hug all of my coworkers.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, we met one of our newest female recruits at a happy hour in real life one time. And at the end of the happy hour, I'd hugged everybody. Everybody else there was a guy. And I just told her, I said, sorry, I'm a hugger. Like, and she was already going for it. You know what I mean? Like, but I was like, the first time I meet you, like, maybe we shake hands to begin with, but I don't do well with that. Like, my hugs are not inappropriate at all. Yeah. But I'm like, we just have to do this because, we're on an intimate familial team. Yeah. I've always enjoyed working on teams with between 10 and 15 people. And in that kind of situation, I remember in my old studio job, I was going to get updates from the developers, and I was giving them shoulder massages while they were showing me over their shoulder what was going on screen. That was not abnormal. Male, female, anything. Never was accused of anything, but I also was like almost indignant that there seemed to be separate rules for separate people.
Yeah.
The creepy guy, the ugly guy in the office, could he do that? Meanwhile, I could date in semi-professional situations and have everyone's blessing. Yeah. And I was like, if I was 20 years older, 20 pounds heavier, would I be getting Me Too'd right now?
Yeah.
Like, but because I was 25 and cool or whatever, it wasn't an issue. Yeah. Now, granted, never was using a position of power or touching anybody like inappropriately or without their consent. We're talking about a shoulder massage on like a dude, So I think that when you're in the trenches and you're sharing 11 p.m. Chinese takeout or Domino's pizza as you're going into like a midterm caucus or a big scandal, or that becomes your family. Yeah. You're sleeping at the office with them, I think that he probably has stepped over the line a time or two. Some of that was inadvertent. Some of it was probably intentional. Some of it he thought he could blame on his power or status. Some of it he thought he could blame on his old age.
Sure.
I don't know with what level of sincerity he's now making these claims now, because he vehemently denies any of this, and he's dug in for the long haul fight.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Got it.
Now, granted, none of these situations are a situation where it's like well, he drugged me or he pinned me up against a wall. All of it is like very murky in some ways, in that there was an example of one woman who claimed that he was trying to get an accurate read on her name tag. So he like grabbed her shirt and was like running his hands on the inside of her shirt to like flatten it out to see her name tag. And I'm like, that almost seems like a very clever way to get to do that.
Right.
You know, like things where I'm like, maybe he was feeling too cocky and confident that week. Like either way, he's had his moment. Yeah. He's been up there in that, you know, what is it? The Albany governor's home for 12 years at this point. Like it's run its course.
Yeah. It's time.
He's also single. It's often Matt Gaetz is single, you know? Sometimes it's kind of like you don't want your preacher man or your congressman being single. You want somebody to point to. Like, do they have an outlet somewhere?
Yeah, that old single, I'd probably be kissing everyone too. I don't know.
Wow. We're saved from the world's biggest predator thanks to Courtney.
Nah, don't say that.
All right. Let's just move right along away from that, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
Love your comedic flair there, Mr. B-Rad. Yeah. But I'm done talking about that. New York is it's a crap show right now. There's vaccine passports. There's sexual harassment. There's all sorts of stuff going on that we don't need to continue on for the tots. But I have a very sad story to share.
Oh, man.
Okay. This is
why are you laughing as you say that?
Because I guess we're gonna play this moral game with the audience, and it's gonna be sad or hilarious.
Ooh, new segment.
Sad
or funny, y'all. Come on.
Because I read this and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Okay.
But it involves loss of life, so let's be somber, and I just want to read this to you, okay?
So I'm just so y'all know, I'm going into this blind. I don't know what to expect. I'm a little worried that I'm going to laugh and it's going to be inappropriate, but first and foremost, R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. We'll go ahead and hedge everything on that. So this is via CNN early yesterday morning, okay?
Oh.
Okay, so
I know what this is.
2 men were mourning the loss of their brother who'd been struck by a light rail train when they were also struck and killed by a train in North Carolina. Pablo Ticariam, 29, and Jose Chilabalam Ticariam, 20, were walking north on the train tracks in Charlotte near 8200 South Boulevard at 5:10 a.m. on Tuesday when they were hit and killed by a Charlotte area transit system Lynx train. Charlotte Mecklenburg Police said in a press release that medics announced both men were dead at the scene. They had been memorializing their brother on the 1-week anniversary of his death, and they were conducting a memorial out by the site where he was killed, Sergeant Adam Jones said during a press conference Wednesday. Unfortunately, the 2 brothers were also struck by a train while they were on foot, and both succumbed to their injuries pretty quickly. So, obviously, what was supposed to be a beautiful memorial went awry, and now it is Train 3 and Ticariam Brothers 0.
Okay, so first of all, I need to see the railroad track. I need to, like, are there a lot of like trees and stuff? Like, is it coming around the bend and you don't
fool me once? Shame on you. Fool me can't get fooled again unless you're a Ticariam brother. And then, come on.
Were they the only ones at the memorial? Like,
it was 5:10 a.m. They decided to do a candlelight vigil for their brother at the spot that he was killed by this train.
Was it just them doing it?
Yes. And then the same train they just cleaned the blood off the front of this thing. And then these 2 guys are like, let's go commemorate our brother. And so they did, and they get killed. So if you're the mother of these 3 boys, do you think this is the saddest day of my life? Or do you think I raised the dumbest boys ever.
Like, okay, hold on. I've never understood accidental train track deaths.
Yeah.
Like somebody's car is stopped on the track.
Like,
get out of the car.
Are the Tickerean boys deaf? Because that'd be a big part of this story, you know. But if they're not deaf,
deaf and blind.
If they're not deaf, they're dumb. Okay. I'm just saying, how do you get killed by the same? Like, you just got killed by a Daewoo. You remember that Danny McBride line?
Jeez.
Bro, I don't. I just saw this and I was like,
I don't know how that happens.
I clicked into the CNN article. I think it was like,
you don't hear it coming.
What?
You don't hear the train,
bro?
That's train a coming.
That's my question.
It's rolling round the.
That's
bend.
why I feel at ease laughing about this with you, and I'm assuming 64% of the tots. There's a couple out there that are pretty mad at me right now, and they're probably the ones I don't talk to.
And I'm just gonna take the baffled route. Like I can't comprehend how that. Like I feel like. Do we have all of the information? Is there something that we're missing?
Video evidence confirmed the two brothers were standing on the tracks when they were struck, he added, but it is unclear how long they were on the tracks before the train arrived. They were lighting candles.
Who took the video? Them?
No, I'm assuming it was like video from the train. Right.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think they probably have a dash cam or something?
Okay.
Just for situations like this, just for the Tickereans, they're like, put in those, make sure there's new footage in there, new roll. Okay, so they were lighting candles and paying tribute to him as best they could on the track. So apparently lighting a candle was challenging for these old boys. All safety features, including the crossing arms, lights, and horns, were working correctly, he said. I cannot imagine losing 3 of your children, 3 of your siblings, within a week to such tragic circumstances, Jones said. Officials suspect that alcohol was a contributing factor, according to the release. Boy, how blitzed do you have to be to... Tuesday's incident was one of 4 fatal accidents with 6 victims this week in Charlotte. In all 4, there's been a level of impairment involved, Jones added. So I'd like to stress to our citizens, please, if you have been drinking, use a rideshare, have a designated driver,
and
or stay
don't
where
be
you
out
are.
by a freaking
stay off the train
tracks.
tracks. This is pretty simple. It's like, man, you know what would be crazy is if they were in the middle of the highway and a train struck them. Then we'd have a real story.
Well, yeah, then
as it is,
I would be baffled for another reason.
The Tickereans they must have been lit up. I mean, how lit do you have to be to miss a train?
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, that did catch me off guard. And
do you see my dilemma where it's like I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't even feel sorry for these buddies. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, if you got killed on the train tracks tonight, and I was, burning one for you next week, and I got killed on the train tracks, that's on me, right?
That's on, yeah.
That's on me.
Yeah.
That's on me, Playboy. I'm just saying, like, I don't understand. Like, if one of them got killed, like a shoelace got caught and he didn't jump away quick enough, if they were playing chicken with the train or something, I get that. But it killed both brothers.
3.
Well,
a total
right, but it killed 2 at once.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
got a combo.
They didn't both get stuck.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers.
The fact that neither were able to jump, like, and train tracks aren't incredibly wide.
No,
so you can do a little.
No,
do a little side.
It's not more than one step for a normal sized man. One man could like go from one rail to the other in a stride.
And so that's why I need to know, like, if this was coming around the corner silently.
Yeah. I guess Tesla makes trains and we didn't know about it. Yeah. There's a Prius train. Yeah. Silent and deadly. It's 5:10 a.m. There is a fog light on the front of this train.
That's a weird time for a memorial.
Well, so they're lit. They were out at the bar till 2, or they were drinking all night at home. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Factor in commute time to the train.
That's a weird time to get drunk.
Because think about it. They either walked or drove from their home to the train tracks to get killed by the same train that killed their brother.
Yeah. Got runned over by a damned old train.
Any hoozle. I thought that was so funny and ironic and tragic. And
there are funny ways to die, no?
That's a funny way to die. That's a really funny way to die.
Like, I never want to, but
listen, there are people out there dying of COVID in ways that are not funny and ways that they did not have control over. All I'm saying is Pablo and Jose could have still been with us if they just stayed off the train tracks.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. A lot of feedback from last week's show. I'm glad that we're kind of getting back on a more routine basis because I feel that
community.
Yeah, I feel that feedback loop kicking back up. And I also think that when we press and do 2, 3, 4 shows a month, that it keeps everybody else accountable too. Because it's like when we come out with one, they're doing one once every 4 or 6 weeks. I'll catch it when I catch it. Now I'm seeing the numbers, start to go back up, and just the real-time nature of everything that happened last week was flabbergasting to me.
Well, so I feel like we need to make a correction from one of the stories you told last week.
What story?
With none other than Mr. Bob Gibbons. I feel like maybe you embellished some of that story.
No. Did I?
I can't let you do that.
Wait, what are you saying I embellished?
He reached out saying that he in no way, shape, or form allowed you to take things from any construction site.
Okay, he definitely did.
Don't double down.
He's saying that in the public forum of Twitter, tongue in cheek.
Don't double down.
Boy, if you think your boy wasn't walking home with an armful of 2x4s.
The next rap song that I come out with, I don't want to have to say free my buddy Bob. All right?
Say it.
No, I'm not going to be wearing free Bob Gibbons t-shirts. All right?
Free him.
Nah.
He's fine.
My boy's innocent. Okay?
He's not.
No, he's innocent.
Dude, of course he's going to say that.
No.
I know why would I have brought that up? Why would I have thought that up? Like, oh yeah, you remember when we used to rob those places as kids? Like, that's not something I just make up or come up with off the cuff. That was based in my truth.
That's okay, your truth.
My truth.
All right. Everybody has their own truth.
We got to walk through any construction site you saw growing up. You got to walk through it and you got to pick one thing.
Yeah. Listeners, some of these stories are fictional that you hear on this podcast.
Dude, that's how I remember it. Okay, I'm just saying as I remember it.
All right.
I mean, he was working a big boy job. He had a mortgage. He had other things going on. I remember. Because that B&E was the biggest part of my day. So free Bob all you want. Bob's been freeing construction sites of one thing at a time for 30 years.
Oh, man.
No. So that was funny. The Snoop Dogg portion.
Yeah.
Actually, free Bob again. He sent that to me, and I forwarded it along to you. He was like, man, you guys are timely. You're beating the New York Times to the punch. Like, the New York Times, right after we commented on, we're seeing Snoop Dogg everywhere. He could pitch any product. The headline in the New York Times the next day, Snoop Dogg can sell any product, and it was literally just like this. Anybody else notice how Snoop Dogg's become this generational icon? Like, it made every point.
Yes. It was incredible. Then we also talked about BJ Novak, and I even mentioned that him and John Mayer were friends. And then it turns out the day that we recorded was BJ Novak's birthday, and John Mayer posted a picture of them too. I'm just saying.
That's weird, okay?
I'm just saying. If you want timely news,
you want to know what's going to happen tomorrow, listen to us today. Okay, so by this time next week, a 4th Tickerean brother will have died on train tracks in Charlotte. Dude, by the way, if that happens, goodness. We're knocking on that wood.
We need to stay away from train tracks because there's one going to Keene, and after this segment, I'm going to be a little leery.
Bro, were you to be killed by a train in your car? Mm-hmm. That's one thing. That's explainable. We've all tried to beat a train. I get that. That train is long. These old boys were on foot.
Yeah.
So unless they had noise-canceling AirPods on, were facing the other way and blind, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Either that or I've never been so lit that I'm going to miss a train coming at me. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the feedback loop.
Yeah. Back to it. We also gave a shout out to Peter and Cynthia Gust. And Carson, you had said on the podcast last episode, we would like to connect with Peter and maybe had some questions for him if he could elaborate, like just how rigorous schooling can be. Him getting all those degrees and everything that he went through, and
just the premise that he just packed up from where he got all this education. And is back in the great Lone Star State of Texas. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Austin got 2 great additions with that one. Or you could just view it that they're part of that problematic exodus from California and New York, and better not bring your values with you. Yeah. No, I'm playing. The coolest part, we kind of shouted them out. I was thinking that Cynthia might have listened before, maybe, and within an hour of debuting the episode, I see them on Instagram story, like pretty crazy when you're shouted. Yeah. I see him in his AirPods, like laughing. And I was like, oh, wow, like that's such a cool viral feedback loop. And also, I don't think anybody's ever really storied the fact that they're listening to our show.
Maybe not. I don't know.
So I like the trend that they're setting there. That's this week's initiative.
Yeah.
As you're listening to the show, whether it's on your car, like portal navigation.
Listen, when we come out with our Patreon, they're going to get a discount code.
Yeah.
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 We're going to let them behind the paywall.
But share your weekly catch-up podcast moment with episode number 78 this week. Let's go viral. Let's get Malaysia back. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it with Peter's help because he's featured on this week's episode.
He is.
Maybe in multiple spots.
Yeah.
Because he took what we said to heart. Must have listened to the whole show because I didn't ask about the audio snippet until the last 2 minutes of that episode. Must have listened to the whole thing because we got DMs this week with saying, what's your email address? Got your audio segment ready. And actually DM me asking for some prompts. I put together some prompts and then said, or also you could ignore all these prompts and just do your own thing. Like we're pretty loose around here at the weekly catch up. So anyway, he sent over 15 minutes of thoughts and recollections. And what we've done is B-Rad and I were not anticipating 15 minutes. So we started listening to it at the beginning of today's, after we did the boilerplate. And it's so good that we're just going to let it run for about 7.5 minutes here. Because he kind of walks us through all the different things that we'd prompted him on. So we've only listened to the first 7.5 minutes. We found a perfect cutting off point. That's where we're going to come back in. We'll evaluate which aspects to share of the rest. But I looked over at Brad partway through listening to the audio, and I was like, I don't really want to cut any of this yet. Like this is all making sense. I'm not offended by this at all. So are you ready to welcome Peter Gust to the weekly catch up?
Yes, welcome Peter. Happy to have you. And here's a little bit more about him.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? This is pretty cool. This is the last thing I thought I would be hearing on a road trip is Cynthia and I being shout out on a podcast. But thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Gust. I went to Southwestern with Brad and Carson back in the day. Ended up graduating in 2012. Have a lot of good memories from that place and with these guys. Pretty close-knit campus there, really small campus, but I appreciated to have been able to get an education, at least from undergrad, from SWAU. I've always admired Brad for the way he relates to people. Man, you got a knack for just hearing people out. You're an incredible listener. You're a good friend to everyone I see, and it's just pretty awesome. And I learned from you. Carson, got a lot of respect for your marketing prowess. Got a lot of respect for your entrepreneurial kind of mindset. I actually dabbled a lot in affiliate marketing, built a ton of WordPress websites, that sort of stuff, in order to kind of pay off some of my debt throughout SWAU and throughout medical school. But you guys kind of want to hear about my journey. It's been through medicine, I guess my medical journey. It's been a long one. It's been a tough one, and honestly, I'm still processing everything that's kind of happened since I graduated. I don't know what number graduation it is, but it's quite a few at this point. The whole process of medical education, I guess you have to get an undergraduate degree first. So, I mean, SWAU was my undergraduate degree in biology. A lot of the classes I took there, honestly, you don't need. So a lot of people who go into medical school now, they actually end up getting a degree in something else like computer science, or you can pretty much get a degree in anything while you're getting your prerequisites for medical school. And a lot of the time, they'll look at you as more of a well-rounded person if you actually didn't get one of the kind of the chemistry or one of the biological sciences. So ended up going out to medical school at Loma Linda. Medical school is 4 years long. The first 2 years consist of pretty much just incredible book work. You're in lectures constantly. You're studying anywhere. I mean, depending on how much work you're putting in and your motivation, anywhere between 8 to 14 hours, 15 hours a day. The first year, you kind of learn about everything that happens when the body is working correctly. And then the second year, you add in pathology and you actually learn about what can go wrong with the body. And that's when the lectures kind of step up a notch. And that's very, very hard year. I ended up studying probably 12 to 14 hours a day during that year. I'd take one day off just to kind of recuperate and get my wits about me. But that's kind of the grind it was as far as the first 2 years of medical school. Third year, you get to get in the hospital. They don't pay you anything. You're paying them to learn on the job, seeing patients, learning how the hospital works, learning how clinics work. By your fourth year, you got a decent hang of that. You still don't know pretty much what the heck you're doing until you're out there and starting residency, to be honest with you. You know all the book stuff, but as with any job, the book stuff and the real life stuff, you got to be able to meld together. So by your fourth year, you're figuring out what type of residency or subspecialty you want to go into. So it's internal medicine, family medicine. If you want to go into dermatology, be a skin doctor. If you want to be a surgeon, neurosurgeon, plastic surgeon, head and neck, ENT, facial plastic surgeon. There's just so many different subspecialties that you can go into, and each of them require a different, a different prerequisites to get into. You got to score a certain amount on each test. There's a couple of tests that you take in medical school, one of which is after your second year of medical school. It's called step 1. There's a whole step system. You take step 1, you take step 2, and you take step 3 after you've actually graduated from medical school. Step 1, when I took it, I believe it was about an 8-hour test. Your score on that test essentially determines what specialties you have the option of going into. They've kind of switched that up recently. They put more emphasis on step 2, which is more of a clinical based test, to where you're actually making decisions about patient care and things like that. Step 1 had a lot of basic science and molecular stuff on it and pharmacology, and but it's kind of interesting to see how things have changed over time. Step 2 is actually a 2-part test, or it was a 2-part test when I took it, where you actually have to see patients that are actors, and they have to watch you on cameras for certain patient scenarios. They offer this test at a few locations around the country. Some people have to fly around. That is about another 8-hour test, and then they have the didactic portion of it that's actually, I believe, about a 9-hour test. Eventually, you graduate and you match into whatever specialty you get to go into, which is a whole process in and of itself. The whole match process happens in fourth year, where you actually apply nationwide to these training programs in the specialty of your choice, and you go and interview with them. And then all the places that you interview at, depending on what you're trying to get into, the applicant ranks the programs, and then the programs rank the applicant, and then a computer algorithm spits out where everyone goes on one particular day, called match day in your fourth year. Then you get ready for residency. So residency can last anywhere between 3 and, I mean, when you're talking about like neurosurgery, it's just a ton of years, 10 years or so. I'd have to see how many it is now. Dermatology, what I decided to go into, ended up being 4 years. I did 1 year of internal medicine, where I was working in the hospital, working in the ICUs, taking care of real sick patients. And then I did 3 years of dermatology residency, which consists of a lot of skin surgeries. A lot of you are probably familiar with Dr. Pimple Popper as well. Got a chance to meet her out at Loma Linda while I was doing my training. Nice lady. If you watch what she does, it's pretty much what we do: take out fatty tumors. I heard Brad talking about his lipoma. We do those. We do a lot of acne. We do a lot of inflammatory skin conditions. We do a lot of inpatient consults for incredible, horrible blistering diseases. We do a lot of infectious disease stuff, but the skin is an incredible organ, and you can actually see what's going on the inside of your body a lot of times through the skin first, which was one of the reasons why I liked it. We do a lot of training in the diagnosis of skin disorders by looking at it under the microscope. So that's called pathology. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. We can do the surgery, we can make the diagnosis, we can do the surgery, and we can kind of make the diagnosis under the microscope if you want to take on that liability.
Over to Mr. B-Rad for thoughts, hot takes.
Yeah, man. First of all, thank you for the kind words, Peter. Love that, and love you guys, and I'm glad that has come across loud and clear. Just the studying 15 hours of, like, I kind of look at this from a teacher standpoint, where, you know, I have students that are seniors, they're graduating, they're wondering what they should do with their lives. A lot of them want to go into the medical field, but just don't have
what it takes.
they I mean, at least as far as like studying goes, like a lot of them are bright, but they don't want to put in the work. And from what I'm hearing from you and other people, like, it's no joke. You're talking about studying 15 hours a day. You're taking 1 day off a week to chill, get your Sabbath rest, and then you're back in the books for several years. So first of all, just props to you. That's something that I know I myself, I don't think I could have ever done.
Neither of us took this path.
Yeah, so. Right. I'm a teacher. I try to give people the tools to do it.
We want our docs to be learned and in a book and like in the, you know, the hospitals getting this experience. But when you hear it, keep going.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like Peter wasn't just on Quizlet, y'all. Like, he wasn't just getting the answers off of Google. He had to go through these rigorous testing and studying. And so if there are any younger ones, I know I don't feel like some of the students that used to listen still listen anymore, but if there are any young people,
I hope not.
Anybody, you know, if anybody catches this in the future and, you know, is thinking about going into that medical field, just understanding the amount of work, the amount of money, the amount of weekends that you don't really get to go hang out with your friends, like there's a long-term commitment to doing this, and it's not for the faint of heart or the people. And I also resonated, you know, where he was talking about how he finally got some training, and so his head was in the books and he passed a lot of those tests, but the book stuff doesn't always line up with the real stuff that you deal with. And that's something maybe to a lesser extent, but that I've found in teaching. Even whenever I did my student teaching, nothing could have prepared me for the things that I've seen as an actual teacher, like having gone through all that process, dealing with a lot of the families and problems at home. Like, you just, at least in student teaching, you don't get that within the few weeks that you're just like a teacher's assistant and kind of taking over some lessons. there's a lot more responsibility that goes along with that. And I can only imagine being in the medical field and experiencing those differences, because it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, completely. I want to thank Peter for this audio submission, because the way that we've done this, we've played you the first 7.5 minutes. We're going to comment on that, and then we're going to play the other half too.
Yeah.
Like just
just listened to it.
Yeah, we
loved it
unabated, because there's just a lot of progressive value, and he really did hit all the points that, in fact, I'm kind of curious about more. I would love to have him on if he's ever in the Dallas area in the future. But thank you so much for sending this in. I found this just fascinating. I think I like the second half even more, to be honest with you. But I jotted down some notes while we were listening to the first snippet for comment. You think it's funny to hear yourself on a podcast? I've heard this from several people. Like I know Michael and Shelly have always told me, like, it's always crazy when you hear your name like on a podcast that you just get through, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which is just the two of us. But I remember back in the day, we kind of like, do we just talk about people like people know them, or like, because we talk about these people pretty laissez-faire, and I think it's been a really good choice more than anything over this show's progression that we just do that. But I think it's funny that you hear yourself on a podcast, think it's a big deal. I thought it was a huge deal to see people listening to the podcast on Instagram. Like, we're shocked every single time anybody tells us that they listen to the show. At least I am. Yeah. I always assumed that you don't. And now to know that there's dermatologists out there, like, what are you doing listening? You get your time back. You spend so much time getting to the spot and you're listening to us. Like that's crazy to me. When serious people, we have multiple PAs, doctors, like, what are they doing?
They spend all that time like,
this is their Love is Blind time. Yes. This is their trash TV moment where they're like, let's listen to what we could have been if we didn't get all this education.
Let's just shake our heads at these two fools for a moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we could continue to be that outlet for those people. He made a couple funny comments. Tight-knit community at SWAU. That's saying it lightly. On campus, I remember I used to always say I could tell who was in the bathroom stall from their sneakers, anywhere on campus at any time without fail. I loved how he tried to highlight some positive aspects of both of us. And he's like, Brad, back in college, your character, you're warm, you're inviting. Carson, great job on that career stuff, you a-hole. Oh, the other part I found interesting was how, and you were talking about, it's hard to go from like, oh, you want to be a doctor to being a doctor, and like you want to do this, and then now you're actually studying, and even, hey, you're studying and now you're in the hospital or you're in the classroom. It's like hands-on practicum. I thought it was very interesting that you could major in computer science and it was viewed as a differentiator that was a positive, a more well-rounded future doctor. I think that that's fascinating. I think that there's so many people that start as bio majors. Am I sitting with one?
You are. Started pre-dent, baby. Chadwick got sick. We got a new teacher for the entire semester. That was like his first time teaching. I studied my butt off, got a C, and next semester I became an English major. And here we are.
You're like, 12 years of education. Let's go with 4.
I'm over here like looking at Peter like, nah, that ain't me.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. I'm sitting with one. There's so many, and this is not related just to SWAU. This is everywhere in the world. I don't even know how many people that start pre-bio or pre-med biology majors that don't cut the mustard, but that's the first proving ground, right? I thought that was interesting that you could just go be an engineer and then do the doctor stuff. I'd like to point out the Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yes, I wanted to bring that up too.
Is that girl on, is it TLC?
I think, I believe so.
She's with all the housewives.
I typically just see the videos online.
Well, I teased the fact, I think you told me he was going to be a dermatologist in last week's episode, and I was like, oh, he's going to be in Plano. Dr. Pimple Popper's in Plano.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's crazy that they met elsewhere, but maybe we're foreshadowing their future home. I could see them in Legacy West with him having his own shingle or whatever.
She's got to retire eventually, and then I want to see Peter swoop in.
Yeah, we want to see Peter on TLC.
Yes.
And then the last part that I kind of had a comment on from this first segment was I loved the meta, like, I loved when he got meta and was like, I like the part where the skin is an indicator of what's going on underneath the surface. Mm-hmm. Like often based on the skin as an organ, which it is, just makes you picture all the skin in like a pile. Yeah. But the fact that it's often a first indication of something malicious or going on behind the scenes or underneath the surface was fascinating to me to kind of think about.
Definitely.
Was that what he referred to as pathology?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was segment number 1. In segment number 2, we tackle more of the questions surrounding the journey, endurance, medical school,
and today's
state of medicine.
Yeah, and today's state of things.
So we're going to roll another 7.5 minutes or so of Mr. Peter Gust. Just found a lot of value throughout this entire segment. So there's even a couple shout outs at the end that you might want to stay tuned for. So without further ado.
So as far as medical school, oh man, it's something that's very hard to explain. I guess medical training, including residency, kind of the mental toll just being in the healthcare system is pretty catastrophic these days. As far as even with nurses, respiratory therapists, anybody in the medical system, pretty much will tell you that the unrealistic expectations from society and pressure from many areas, especially from non-clinical administrative burden, is an exhaustion. It's incredibly exhausting, especially throughout the pandemic. As providers, a lot of the time we're taught medical education is heavily based on weighing objective evidence, and this has been a change. You talk to old school doctors and they're like, oh, we had to learn everything. We had to be in the hospital way longer than you guys. We had to do this and that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, Google wasn't around when they were, smartphones weren't around when they were, and they didn't have patients coming in saying that you're wrong as the doctor pretty much 50% of the time. So there needs to be a huge societal shift in the way of thinking. I mean, we're caught between two dichotomies, one of which it wants the parental form of medicine where the doctor's telling the patient what to do. And then we're taught to be the people giving the information based on objective evidence. And we're supposed to be the ones that are working as a team with the patient. And it's a dynamic that you just have to figure out on a patient to patient basis. A lot of people just get mad at you if you don't tell them exactly what to do. A lot of people don't want to take charge of their own health, which costs a mental toll on the physicians too. It's been especially tough during the pandemic because of the vaccines and everything. I mean, if you work in healthcare, you have an extreme healthcare bias to take the vaccine because that's where the data is. And so it's been hard to watch people kind of refute and think they know better. So that's taken quite a mental toll, both on Cynthia and I, both work in the hospital. Cynthia worked with COVID patients since it began at the bedside. I mean, she has scars on her nose from her protective equipment because she couldn't take it off for 12, 13 hours at a time. It's really taken a mental toll just because we want America to be strong. We want everyone to be on the same page. But coming from a healthcare perspective, it's definitely taken a mental toll since the pandemic. As far as the length of training, delayed gratification, convincing yourself that is really a thing, just saying one more year, and then finally that year comes. And honestly, the way I feel about it right now is I have the same mentality I had before. I still feel like I need to be grinding and just pushing forward. But I actually have some time off before I start my job here over in Austin in September, and it's kind of just giving me some time to reflect and figure out what what in the world happened these past, I don't know, all my 20s are gone pretty much because I was hunched over a book, and you're either hunched over a book or you're in the clinic seeing patients. My specialty in particular, you're seeing lots of patients. You're seeing them very quickly, and then you come home and you learn about the rare diseases and in these huge textbooks that you're going to be tested over. And it was pretty taxing. It feels like you're having two full-time jobs for which only in residency you start getting paid a lot less than people realize. You're a physician, but you make about 1/5 of what you will be once you finish residency. But it is a weird feeling when it finally slows down. I would say if you're looking into going into medicine, it's not the easiest of financial moves in terms of getting ahead early. You lose a lot of productivity years. It's something that's not talked about a lot. It's something that should be talked about. If I was going into medical school again, I would want someone to actually talk to me about the very realistic nature of burnout. The next generation is just burnt out and feeling very taken advantage of by the state of medicine right now. Insurance companies have gotten so powerful to the point that they're making decisions regarding what medications our patients can and can't have, which has been just an incredible stress on a lot of my colleagues. I mean, we get through it. We do it for our patients, but something needs to change as far as legislation, and I don't have the answer for that. So I don't like talking about it too much, but the way it's working right now, I see some huge flaws, where prisoners end up getting better healthcare than most of the middle class, and it's something's got to give. The majority of people graduating from medical school right now have anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000 in debt. That's pretty conservative. I've seen those numbers thrown around. A lot of my friends I graduated with, if they didn't have any family help or anything like that, they took out living expenses, and most of them are up in the $400,000 in debt. So if there's any word of advice I would give as far as like the next generation and finding a good doctor, if you have any questions about a doctor, just find an honest one. I mean, I'd be leery about thinking someone's a good physician just because they give you a hug when they come in the room and they make you feel good when they leave the office. Don't discredit the physician that makes you uncomfortable with their honesty, but is looking you in the eyes when they say it. Because that's the type of physician that's actually going to take good care of you. And you can have good bedside manner, but when it comes to either choosing to lie to make the patient feel good or actually giving them the news, you got to find the doctor that gives you the news straight up. And there's a lot of great docs and a lot of great people that I've worked with that are those type of people. And I've also seen the opposite. You need to vet your docs, make sure that you're not just basing it on how they make you feel when you go to the office. I hope that makes sense. It might not make sense, but anyways, I've kind of rambled a bit. Want to shout out to the other Schauffle alum, Kofi, just moved out to California when I was taking off, orthopedic surgeon. Zavi, emergency medicine physician. Denard, all those I've forgotten who may have gotten sucked up into the whirlwind that is medical education that were behind me in their training. I wish you the best of luck. But these words, I mean, I've talked a lot about things that I'm unhappy with the medical system, but that doesn't mean that there's not an incredible amount of great people I've met throughout the training. Some of my best friendships have come from training. You feel like you're in the hospital with them for hours and hours and hours, or in the clinic for hours. I mean, they're some of your best friends, and you don't forget those people. They've changed your life. You change as a person throughout the process, but you kind of learn to adapt, and just like anything in life, if you don't push yourself or if you don't kind of learn how to adapt, you're gonna stay stagnant. You're not gonna accomplish anything. So hopefully this kind of painted a little bit of a picture of my journey for you guys. Hopefully we can figure out a way to just help everyone in this country and have the money to do it. I don't know the way to do it, but if you guys are looking for a good dermatologist, come out and see me at Southwest Dermatology and Vein in Austin. Anyways, it was great talking to you guys. It was great to say a few words. Thanks for the shout out. I'll be listening to future episodes. Good luck with the podcast, you guys. Thanks.
All right, and that was part 2 of Peter's segment. Carson, what you think, man?
We switching it up? I'm going first this time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought, man, that was so fascinating. I have more notes than probably on the first one. I'll just go in chronological order here.
Sure.
The whole like doctor dynamic with, people are going to be mad at you, and some people get mad at you if you don't practice the parental view of like being a doctor, where it's like, do this, do that. This is exactly what you need to do. And they just want definitive answers, to their health maladies or how they should be treating those. That portion was very fascinating. And I'm going to save more comments on it for later because he touches on several different aspects of this that I could kind of tangent off on. But fascinating that 50% of people say you're wrong to the doctor, and that, the old school version of parental medicine versus today's more like collaborative effort, where the patient likely has already crowdsourced this information via the net. They think they've already self-diagnosed via WebMD.
WebMD, baby.
Like, that's something that only became a reality a little while ago. Like, he was commenting on how some of the old doctors, oh, we were in the hospital, we were in the textbook. And he's like, well, yeah, but you guys didn't have Google. And this at the same rate, now the doctors have Google. Peter's going to benefit from having Google. And Peter's at a weird moment where our generation, we still had some of the classical scholastic institutions taught to us, like, how to like cursive and some of those things that, we were on the cusp. It wasn't available to us where we'd mastered it and deployed it in the classroom. Like everything in the classroom was pencils and, paper. It wasn't even writing papers on a laptop until like high school or something.
Right.
So he's on that cusp where I feel like he probably still got the more scholarly old school education, and now also has access to, the benefits of Google and whatnot. But the flip edge sort of that is everybody's self-diagnosed via Google and WebMD prior to coming to see him or a doctor, and they're going to fight you.
Yeah, everyone's a professional now.
And the ones that don't fight you, either maybe they want a parental view that he's not willing to give, or, they're not willing to stand up for their own health.
Yeah.
I had honestly wondered, I don't know why, but just whether he was going to comment on the vaccine and where he stood on it. It's good to know that, he's just like, hey, the data shows us that you're better off having it. So that makes me feel better about my decisions. Delayed gratification. He used that term, and I've used that many times, because on the one hand, it's like, we pitch this like, oh, he's just getting started. He's just, rolling out, making real money and doing all this. Like I've been sitting here making killer money. Like, I've had good years. I've had terrible years. I've had years where I made no money trying to stand up businesses where I like literally did not make money, or I got paid for 6 months out of that year and didn't get paid. Maybe I put money into a company. Yeah. So I've also had to practice the whole delayed gratification thing. It has not been in a consistent thread of like book learning and degree getting like him. But balancing that, like one more year of this, like, the future isn't guaranteed. And it's like, should I be out there doing fun stuff right now? Like, I thought that piece was fascinating. I identified with him on that aspect, and it was kind of good to hear somebody that is of comparable age that I guess is as serious about those goals as sometimes I think I am. Yeah. Not everybody employs that resolve, especially verbally.
Sure.
Like in a public forum. That said, when he said, my 20s are basically gone, hunched over a book, I like recoiled a little. I was like, whoa. Just because when I think about Die with Zero and the amount of like memory dividends that I was able to create in my 20s, with my jobs and travel and, going to Europe with all my best friends when I was 25, like things that I'll never do again that were just really amazing that I would have never been able to do had I been under the gun of, an imminent 9-hour test over a 7,000 page textbook, his point about, I heard multiple things. It's like, what do you do when you're burnt out, but also feel uncomfortable, like you should be grinding?
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's been at that cusp. He's at that cusp now. I feel like I've been at that cusp for a couple of years, where it's like, I know a lot of like 30 somethings, millennials, that they're like, I have to maintain this pace for like forever, like, or until I'm 60 or retirement age. Like, our parents, they worked hard and did all this stuff. And I know your dad was a very hard worker.
Yeah.
But there were portions of his career and my dad's career and my mom's career where when they left the office, they left it because there weren't cell phones and beepers and pagers and email and all of this. Like they'd check that at 9:00 tomorrow morning.
Right.
We always have work with us.
Yeah.
Do you have a CTA work email on your phone?
Yes.
Okay.
That we have Slack. I've received messages since sitting on this couch with you because we have that meeting later this evening. So
you have the Sunday scaries via Slack, just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do when you're at that cusp? That'd be something worth exploring with. I'd love to ask more people about that because, it's just something to ponder. And then finally, loved his shout outs and all of that. And just like, finding some of the good that had come out of all of this medical training and time and toil. But his part about, finding an honest doctor that will give you good advice that
I wrote that down too.
Will sting, but they'll look you in the eye. Like, he should start a matchmaking service for people with doctors because I feel like doctors and the medical field has been so innovated and changed that, teledoc, virtual medicine, logging into a Zoom room or something with a doctor, that just became a thing recently.
Yeah.
Like that's not, he's going to start with that in his practice, I'm assuming. But doctors that debuted 5-10 years ago weren't doing that.
No.
So it's just wild to think about how he has to employ on a patient by patient basis the way that he's going to provide bedside manner versus parental view of doctors versus collaborative, knowing that they've already researched it and they're going to fight him and that things are political and that his hands are tied sometimes if he wants to prescribe a certain type of medication that person's insurance does not cover. He's dealing with he's literally dealing with corporate giants like WebMD, Google, insurance companies. He's dealing with big corporate business. He's hundreds of we don't know if he's in debt, but his average peer is in debt $200,000 to $400,000. So they need to make that money back. It seems like an impossible situation. Like, and this is where sometimes it's like we need Bernie. Like whenever I deal with the medical system and realize that you just can't get everything all in one place, you can't get good comprehensive care, and it really does come down to like establishing a relationship with somebody honest that you see and cultivate that working relationship together.
Yeah, I mean, he was even talking about how insurance companies decide which meds to give you, like, because they're trying to save money, which is interesting. I was just talking with some of my coworkers while we were at this teacher convention, and we were talking about how Adventists, through the conference, the insurance is pretty good. However, at least two of my coworkers, one of my coworkers has dealt with like seizures in the past, and so he's been given meds to help curb those episodes. And his insurance company like gave him a different brand because it was cheaper. And then it turns out, like the mg, like the milligrams, I guess, were a much lower dosage too, and he would like start feeling weird, and it's all because they were just trying to save money. And so it is kind of scary to, you're trying to get healthy, you're trying to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Meanwhile, the insurance companies that you're paying help protect you are trying to find the cheapest way to do so, and that's not always the best form of care. You know,
it feels like Russian roulette every time you go up to the CVS pharmacy window and you're in a pinch, you've gotten sick with something that maybe you haven't gotten before, and you're taking medications that you're not typically taking, and you're like, I don't know if this is $2 or $2,000.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to tell me. I had one the other day say, oh, this one is expensive. And I was like, how much is expensive? And she was like, it's going to be like $200. And I was like, bring it up, like, bring it on. Like, but I didn't know, like, some of those pills that, you know, the famous case of that kid jacking up the price of that one pill 750%.
Yeah.
Which is a convenient, you know, scapegoat story in some ways. There's more to it than that. But at the same time, everybody's got to eat. You know, it's a difficult, the whole thing being, you want it tied in with, you know, for-profit corporate America, because then you're going to get speedy service and innovation. And that's the reason why I can log into a Zoom room portal and see a doctor in 5 minutes. Yeah. You know, I made a teledoc appointment at 5:15 a.m. the other day and was talking to some old boy by 5:21 a.m. You know, go on.
Yeah. Let me look. So the other things that I wrote, you had kind of already touched on, but just like the mental toll. You know, we've talked on here of how the mental toll has affected us and our workplace, and I even kind of touched on it today, and how at the teacher convention, you know, like they're talking about COVID. I actually didn't go into this, but the last session of the teacher convention was like a mental health type thing where a speaker was just like talking about how difficult the year was, but it didn't seem helpful. Like, he had us turn to a partner, and one of the questions was, what was like an emotional thing that you went through during this? And, you know, everybody sitting around me like knows. And 3 seats down, my friend Carla, she had also lost her dad to COVID. And so, like, we're sitting there, you know, I had kind of like not tuned in before that question was asked. I'm
the
like,
most emotional moment of our years is when our families died.
Yeah. Like, I was just doing a crossword on my iPad, to be honest. Yeah. And then they like tapped me and they're like, can you believe this question? And like, I almost wish they hadn't, because then I got emotional. I got up and left, because you're not going to solve anything.
Yeah. Don't big box this issue.
Yeah. Like, asking that question, I don't care to know that I know a lot of other people went through really hard times. I don't need to like rehash it. If there's not going to be like a form of solution, like
if it's to do with masking young children or students, and what was something challenging that you experienced, and how can we practically apply that to the classroom for the benefit of others that may not have dealt with that? That's a great targeted question for this conference.
But if it's just like,
hey, like, well, how were your feelsies?
I had a rough year. You had a rough year. Okay, cool. And that's the last thing.
Sad.
And that's the last thing that we talk about. I wasn't a huge fan of that.
When did you want to kill yourself this year? Yeah. Like, oh, goodness.
And so the mental toll, you know, then we get back to a meeting on Friday, and we're discussing masks. And, you know, some people are like, oh, you know, well, masks don't prove to do anything. And I'm just like, can I don't want to have this conversation with any of you. Like, it doesn't matter what your thoughts are. Like, we have a lot of kids that we're trying to keep safe. This isn't about, you know, people are bringing up politics and stuff. It's just crazy. And so, you know, I can only imagine Peter and other people in the medical field seeing, they're on a different side of everything, just seeing what's going down. And Peter, you and all of the other medical workers are like so resilient. And you know, you're talking about Cynthia wearing a mask that's putting scars on her nose because she's wearing them for like
she was on the real front lines all through COVID, you know.
Yeah. And so
it's a lot.
Yeah, if I keep talking, I'm gonna get emotional. So I just want to say, like, thank you for all that you've done, you know, for the betterment of others and all of your patients and everything. Like, that's no small feat. And even if, it brought you down and there were difficult moments, because I know there were many, just thank you for sticking with it and being there for your patients. Because, myself and seeing people like working with my dad and everything, like that just means a lot to me. Whenever I hear about people being there and trying to give somebody the best care that they possibly can. So thank you.
Yeah, and just being real with them. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Honest. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I would have liked more honest conversations during that time period from a medical professional. Whenever my dad was in the hospital, I felt so blindsided whenever that day came. And granted, I was the son, and so I pretty much all the information that I got was secondhand. But yeah, I just feel like there could have been more honest conversations. And I know some people do want to be coddled and they want to be given hope and stuff, but you're absolutely right in finding like a doctor that meets your needs, and finding one that you're satisfied with. And like for me, somebody that wants to be shot straight and just kind of get to the point, tell me the expectations, tell me what we can do. That would have been great. And so I definitely agree with you and appreciate you saying that as advice for others.
That's where I was going as well. And one of my principal learning experiences firsthand, or my firsthand in this situation, unfortunately, is your situation where I remember thinking, maybe even commenting on this, like to you on a phone call, like just so much of this treatment is trying to discern communication. Like, you're getting a game of telephone where, first of kin or, the spousal privilege is getting information, but different doctors are on different shifts. They have different ways of delivering information. I know that there were shift changes during some of this. I know that you were delivered news that was optimistic, showed up and it was not optimistic.
I showed up to the hospital and I was shot straight as soon as I got there, but I was so blindsided that was the direction it was going.
Right.
Because of the information that we had heard from somebody else beforehand.
But I remember even in your retelling of, status updates and different things like this, and also just pragmatically, like you and I were trying to plan real life around this. Like you left my house upon arrival for a podcast to take him to the hospital for the first time.
Yeah.
So this all, this was real life scheduling, and the levels of severity shifted, obviously during this time, but just so much of that came down to me realizing and commenting, like, I was trying to ask you questions to clarify, okay, so, is that what we're hopefully saying? What should normally happen? Like the communication aspect of it, I think that there's a lot lost in communication when doctors are forced, because of insurance companies and some of the things that Peter alluded to. I know that doctors have to touch X number of patients in a day, and that number can be insane. Like we're talking like 90, 100 patients in a day where they're spending an average of, 6.5 minutes and just trying to get you out the door. Here's your prescription. And as an adult who seeks medical care basically for things that ail me, I realize this is just a drug exchange. I went to urgent care and what did I get? I got tests. I got a shot in the butt. Like you expect a pill, you expect something. What are you writing me? What's actually going to happen? Because, when I go see a teledoc and they're like, well, I could send you to this urgent care for a steroid shot, or, I'm thinking that based upon what I just saw and heard, we could give you some lidocaine, try to clear it up over here. Like, it's just speculative drug dealing for certain types of doctors. Peter is going to have a much more, Peter's going to have a before and after. Being a dermatologist is going to be cool. And, I think that that's fascinating because I'm somebody that went through Accutane. My sister and I went through Accutane extensively.
Yeah.
That's back when I was projectile vomiting in the Swallow cafeteria when I would cough because I was so dry.
Yeah.
He's well aware of this drug. Anyway, what communication is key, and it's what a lot of the time is spent on.
And he's talking about that tight roping where you want to have good bedside manner, like you don't just want to be like, oh, yep, there, you want to be sensitive to it, but sensitivity does not mean, there's no gray area in the truth. You can be sensitive and say, hey, this is the situation and this is what's happening or going to happen.
Well, and he might, and not necessarily him, because hopefully in dermatology, it's like, he's doing different things, but certain doctors are going to experience a hysterical mother, that, what's happening with my baby? And like, they're getting to a point where even delivering them any amount of truthful information would just make them more hysterical, and it would set the agenda back. So you're having to manage that. And then the next patient that they see 6.5 minutes later is some sort of like corporate executive on Adderall trying to get to his next meeting saying, hey, just give me the skinny. What is this? Okay, so I have this. What's my percentage chance of it contracting to something further? You have to pivot in those moments while discerning the objective data, and maybe even having to run, how do you speculate and collaborate on the objective data when you're maybe having to talk the patient out of something that they pre-diagnosed themselves with based on Google?
Right.
You're tight-roping all of that, and you're $400,000 in debt day one, and you're burnt out, but you also feel like you can't quit.
And you yourself, at least in the current state of things now, you are also dealing with a pandemic. Like,
yeah, you might be fearful for your own human safety.
Being.
Yeah.
And so, like, whenever you're talking about the mental health and stuff, like, my heart goes out to y'all, and I'm glad you stuck it through. And
well, invariably, there's people in Peter's shoes that have gone through just the most rigorous education and schooling and labs and rotations, clinicals, all of this for the last. I mean, he's been in college for 12 years. And no, I'm sorry. Because he did 4 years of undergrad, he did 4 years of medical school, he did 4 years of residency. So he's been in college for 12 years. And then think about him sitting around the Thanksgiving table with some ornery QAnon uncle that's like, what do you think about the vaccine? And he's like, I think the objective data supports it. And he's like, you little commie. What do you vote for Biden? Like all of that.
Want to give up our freedom.
And it's like, the fact that there's not probably global admiration and respect for the amount of schooling that you've gotten when you're giving that opinion because it doesn't back up that person's political ideology. I mean, you just got to throw up your hands. Anyway, that was really appreciate all of that, Peter. And Cynthia, thank you for fighting the good fight on the front lines. And
absolutely,
I don't even understand how scarring from masks can occur. I'm assuming she was like M91, M91'd up, and they have like do they have like a bar through it or something?
Yeah,
more like a metal frame or something.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
But we're glad that y'all are here, and thanks for continuing to listen. Would love to continue the conversation and talk more because I found that fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Cynthia has family in the Dallas area, and so definitely if y'all ever make a little trip up here, let us know.
You got anything else?
Whatever else I have, we could talk about next week. I was gonna touch on the Kanye album. That's not here yet, but the listening party was crazy.
What's up with him and suspended platforms? Why is that always a thing?
I don't know, but everything that he's been doing since the album didn't come out, I approve of. So I think that album's gonna sound nuts.
Well, cool.
Yeah, so that's
Sunday
my take
school,
on
baby.
that.
I saw somebody at North Italian, a Sunday school, like official
Mm-hmm.
Donda outfit the other day or whatever.
Yeah, pay that choir.
Yeah, yeah. These kids nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I really am encouraged and hopeful that that this generation of doctors are going to be the pragmatic, clear communicators that you can work with, and I think it's just imperative. Sorry to circle back. I'm just still thinking about that because I'm struck by again, you don't have so many conversations with just all the people that you went to college with where they're serious, and you can tell that they're plagued in some ways by taking into account all the different sides of a situation. And at a certain point, you feel crazy when you're doing that. And it's reassuring to know that, hey, if you are a normal person that's like curious with your head screwed on straight, how could you not feel this way when you're taking all this into account?
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
So I just enjoy speaking with people like that. You're one of those people. And it's just more difficult, like, to come on, bro, like just like your idiot friend. Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you, man?
What about me?
You're good?
I got nothing else.
Yeah, I think after that,
I'm emotionally spent. So anyway, thanks for getting over here, dude. Good luck with parents later today.
New parents. So, we'll wrap up here. I'll give you a hug and kiss goodbye, and then
you gonna Cuomo me?
And then you gotta go change and get ready for them.
Alrighty. Well, Tots, we did it again. Number 78.
Yep.
In the books.
Peter, thank you, buddy. All you listeners that are sticking with us. Love y'all.
Love y'all. Bookend to bookend. Spotify says so.
That's right.
Spotify Analytics. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all.
Yeah.
We will catch you up next time.
Peace.